you could almost anticipate. I think you could build into your approach, your algorithmic approach, even if you were just factoring it in like a spreadsheet. You could anticipate the volume of the ICO and versus how quickly it filled would tell you how fast the pump was going to be on the other side with the ether as they convert and stuff. That'll flatten out over time, though, as there's going to be less and less need for conversions into fiat. So we've got a local pot emporium around here with regional that's got multiple stores that deals now in Litecoin, Ether, and Bitcoin, and will accept those. And we've got two other organizations that are food co-ops that are putting in Litecoin. And so once you can start exchanging your Litecoin directly for goods, we'll see a lot less of that whipsaw kind of stuff, because they won't have to sell the ether necessarily for, even though that it's ether and Litecoin, just the fact that the cryptocurrencies would have yet another outlet without requiring the conversion to fiat is going to flatten things out a bit. But all the rest of this year, probably, your friend will do very well if he gets the timing right on that, because it's going to keep going and keep going. I imagine just based on I read 347 or so, okay, white papers and setups. I did not read through maybe an additional 400, okay, where I would just look at the first paragraph and say, no, this is like Hive or something, where it's a ripoff of Populous, right? Oh no, then throw it away. Just no point in looking at it.
And then we can just buy your report for $99.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so, but given that, okay, given the 700 that are still pending, whose goal is to be out by this time next year, you could plot the rate at which they're going to have to do that and come on board. Even if they're some kind of a shitcoin, it's still going to have an Ethereum impact. Because you notice that even the shit coins do well, they get a little tiny pop, and then they may go flat with a long tail. But even so, they're impacting the ether. So
I think with with what's going on with the ICOs and all the hedge funds that are getting in now, and the big money saying, wait, something's going on here, I need to make some money, they're going to all need to get at least a little store of Ethereum in their pocket, so that it's not buying into the highs and lows. They just have it there from when they see an ICO that they want to go after. So I think more and more money is going to come in to Ethereum, especially just for the ICOs, and people won't even be selling it. They'll just save it for the next ICO.
It may well turn into that too, in terms of the people that get the Ethereum in the ICOs themselves. I hear now are being approached by private brokers. So I wondered on Populous, okay, why the rate at which the exchange for Ether to dollars was ongoing. Why didn't it steepen after the successful Populous, figuring that they would have to convert back through into dollars or equivalent fiat, which would show up in dollars anyway? And I think what's going on is there's private brokers that are doing just like you say. They're out buying ETH for corporations to stash. I know I've been approached by a guy who was styling himself as a broker and who was trying to find sources for Veritasium. And if for his clients,
I love that one. That's my favorite.
Isn't that cool?
That's my favorite. Oh my God! Did you hear his latest announcement? They're going.
Oh yeah, they took over Jamaica. Yeah.
Yeah, they signed an MOU with Jamaican Stock Exchange, which is a $6 billion market cap. If that works, and because it's such a truth machine, implementing this type of thing into a stock exchange that's kind of iffy in the first place, the Jamaican Stock Exchange. If it works, and all of a sudden Jamaica has the most truthful market in the world, he can spread that over to everything.
Exactly. What a lot of people don't get is this stuff's been ongoing for years. Some of these things that are ICOs now, the organization, some of them are being rushed into production, so to speak, but they may have had blockchain platforms in test 2 years ago and code being run through the Source Alchemy testing suites to get verified, maybe 18 months ago. So they've been in production, so to speak, in an operational environment that long. It's not like it's a new technology that's going to break as soon as they implement it. And Reggie's approach, Reggie was building his tools and had his concept before Ethereum took off. And he was smart enough to see the wave and say, well, I was building a boat, I'd better get a surfboard. And look where he's at now, right?
Yeah. I think interesting that you pointed out that people have approached you about getting some Veritasium. They approach me all the time. How do I get Veritasium? The Ether Delta site, which is like the main site you can get it right now, is very thinly traded. If I was a big money guy looking to buy Veritasium, I would keep that. I would be selling on that exchange because it doesn't take much to suppress the price there, and then doing bigger deals off exchange. I think there's a little of that going on right now because I look at everybody I talk to is saying, how do I get it? How do I get it? I go, well, you gotta kind of exchange it on Ether Delta. It takes a little figuring out, but it's not rocket science. But I think when it hits a big exchange, if it can hit a big exchange, because the exchanges, they deal within each other, so they got to have all that Veritasium already in the exchange ready to trade.
Well, before that, they even have API issues. Okay, bear in mind, this is all software. Okay, so it's not like it's as easy as, Joe actually picking up a coin and handing it to me. We've got to sit there and agree that we're both going to use our hands for one, right? And we're both going to grasp it with this way so that it doesn't fall, and so on and so on. We've got to have all these rules for how we're going to exchange this because it's information back and forth. And it's fascinating when you think about it. The guy who does Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, you got to listen to him. He goes to all these conferences. He tells you what the hell's going on. His speaking style is his own, and he really does get into it. And it's like everybody has to understand. First, we really had software eating, the air traffic control system. Then we had software eating the driving of boats, driving by wire. And then we had software eating airplanes, where it's all fly-by-wire. And now software is eating money. And so it's going to be a different world, but because it's all software, certain things have to happen a certain way. So it's real easy to see how there's issues with Veritasium, since it's a smart contract on top of the blockchain, as opposed to an actual line item within the blockchain, which is a reference to a transaction, and is sort of, at that sense, can be thought of as a currency. Because bear in mind, even Bitcoin is that. So in Bitcoin, it's not actually sending me a piece of information that says 1.1111111 part of a Bitcoin. It's not that at all. It just is a pointer to where there was a Bitcoin before minus this transaction. And so what really it's referencing is the little space, the amount that happened in that transaction. Whether that transaction added to my Bitcoin or took away from it is within the transaction itself. Mm-hmm. And so it's a representation of the exchange. And so when they do this on Poloniex or Bittrex or some of these other places, they have to have an application programming interface that Veritasium understands, and vice versa. Just like you had to, Joe, it was a little bit of a challenge to get through, right? In terms of how you bought the things. Not like walking down to the grocery store and saying, hey, a gallon of milk, please.
Yeah, and if you
I've been sending everybody to Joe's video on how to deal with Ether Delta. It was a great one, Joe. Thank you. I don't have to try to explain it myself. I say, go to Joe's site.
Yeah.
On that note, I told everybody that I would take a victory lap for how well we've done, at least so far. It's rare that in investing you ever stand up and say, yeah, we did it. We got it. We're there.
Yep.
I think I think it's early in the game, but I am definitely saying victory laps for
there's for sure one. For sure one lap. Absolutely.
Well, some of the others too are going to turn out to just be staggering. The pay, the populace, the pay token, and then the populace. Those are going to be true kick-ass ones. You heard about populace in China, right?
I have
Doesn't
not.
get any. Yeah, they've signed deals now with China to be the payment layer at certain points with Chinese officialdom infrastructure.
Nice.
So it doesn't get any better than that, And AdX had their code verified the other day, so it's all passed all its tests. It's going to be really cool, guys. It's people don't understand that. They think it's solid and can break, but it's software. It's so malleable that you got people that are coders that Joe works with all the time, and says, "Get off that machine so I can fix it," that kind of thing, right? And they fix stuff all the time. So I don't worry about that part of it. I'm certain it'll break continuously, but for the most part, we'll probably never even see it.
Sounds good to me.
So back on your report, you talk about one section, like gold fever and stuff, or and you to me, I take it like in some of the previous WebArt reports where you're talking about this gold fever and this new gold rush and this and that, and it sounded like a real gold rush, and we actually had somewhat of that language coming up, like with the Orville Dam people. Hey, it's washed away. We want to go pan for gold, and all these stories around that, where that happened, and then sure enough, we have this gold rush language. But in this report, it almost sounds like maybe same thing as a gold rush, but it's cryptos, not per se, or gold per se. Is that?
Yeah, you're quite right. We have these things. It's a issue of data masking. Okay, it's like the thing that happened in 2003. I'm gonna just see if I can draw it here and see if you guys can see it. In data masking in 2003, we had all this earthquake language, and so we had us here. Can you see the X there?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, you Biggs. What's
that? Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so here we are, and we're looking into the future. We get a view like this, and we see earthquake, but because the way we're looking, we don't know it's a tunnel, and we see this out here is brought forward, so it all looks like right there. Make sense?
Yeah.
And so in 2003, I saw earthquake at that level. And we had little earthquake with the Scott Peterson trial in California that met all the linguistics, people jumping out of the windows, all of that celebrity trial. Then it went nowhere. It just went and a nothing burger, right? And so then along comes the Banda Aceh quake, where we had the rest of the fulfillment of the 300,000 people dead, nation kicked back to a previous age, all of that. We're looking at that same thing here, only we have a subtle difference. The data sets I've been interpreting for the huge giant gold rush, you have to understand they don't actually appear as the word gold to start with. What happens is that all of these things are sets within sets within sets, so you can get a fuzzy logic view. So what we have is we have the situation of where what I see in the data is I see this thing here like this that is wealth. And so I had giant wealth rush. Okay, well, what's a wealth rush? Because I have associated with wealth all of the emotions that we would think of in a gold rush. The speculation, the anticipation, all of that stuff, digging in the ground, we're going to be wealthy, all the greed, the avarice, all of that. It all shows up. Only so I look inside this, if you will, a giant word cloud, and I see in there, oh, there's gold over there. Now it makes sense, gold fever. Because then I actually do look in here, and we do have words that describe the fever, the disease, people, the fear of missing out, all of this kind of stuff. Only from our perspective out here, I can see, I know about cryptos, I mean, they're around and so on, but there's no direct relationship that I can see that ties the fever language necessarily to the cryptos when we have the previous linkage of gold fever. And so because I'd had that linkage built into the data sets, it was like a built-in bias or artifact, because certain phrases are so both prescient, meaningful, and also popular that if I see them showing up repeatedly, I piggyback on the popular to see if they're also prescient in this period of time. And so I was looking at gold fever. Sure enough, we had that language. We had the people in Indonesia that were out panning for gold. We had the people that were, 4 doors down from Bix, getting ready to go on out and hit the Oro River down there. So it was all popping up. And basically, it was another one of these obscuring things where that language was so close to us back then as the gold fever language was building up. I couldn't see it was really fever cryptos. And gold is in there and in the background, but just kind of like an aside as we get into this new age.
And it's kind of, if Bix may not remember this because I don't know if he was following you this far back, but you remember the Occupy Wall Street stuff? You had a bunch of data sets on that, and it was calling for beheadings and people getting trapped in these orange nets, and like maybe the net, cut their neck off or something. So he's like, hey, this is what the data's showing. So we're seeing all this stuff, and we see, sure enough, these women got netted and pepper sprayed, and they were trapped and made big news, but there was no beheading. But in the same time frame, literally the same day or the next day, there was 3 or 4 beheadings of women in Mexico because they were riding out on some of the cartel or something. So the beheadings were there, the women were there, and then we had women trapped in the netting all the same day, plus or minus a day or so. And I'm like, oh, well, hey, that's the webbot, it's not perfect.
Well, it's the geography of it all, right? Because we undoubtedly at that time had all kinds of references for Mexico, also the beheadings that were occurring in the Middle East. We had those references, but because you constantly get geographic references all over to hell and gone, you can't trust them. You don't know what's going to pan out to be a valid one and what isn't.
Yeah, I think the most amazing thing is that, I have always looked at investments and predicting things in the future as, okay, you got to analyze this, this, and this. Whereas Clif puts all his data together, sends his spiders out, it all comes back. It shows him what's going to happen. He's got to analyze it and explain it to the rest of the world. And I just think it's unbelievable what you've been able to do so far, especially in cryptos. In silver, I am absolutely convinced that the language is all there. The language has been there the whole time. It's just they rigged the price. So what are we going to do?
And
they've been sitting on it. Yeah.
I want to ask about that actually, since that kind of goes in with what we were just talking about. Just because the gold fever thing, maybe we're talking cryptos as the gold rush, not necessarily gold again. Do you feel all of a sudden gold and silver, well, they're probably not, those numbers from the old webbot, $300, $400, $500, they'll never happen now? Or do you think that's definitely baked into the cake? It's going to happen.
It's going to happen, Guy. The data sets are really clear about that. And there's also now in the last run I did here, there's a very clear collision showing up emotionally between the needs for silver as a strategic storehouse for energy manipulation versus the post-millennial generation deciding that silver is their stuff, okay, that they like this and they're going to start putting wealth into it. So the description sets we get show the post-millennial generation being in a situation of where they're not putting money into houses, they're not driving and buying expensive cars for the most part, and they may be out for experiences, but they also want to have a wealth store whenever they get any spare cash kind of thing, and they don't trust banks, and they do trust the digital currencies, but they also want something out of even that system, and that silver is going to benefit from that, like in the immediacy. And in the long term, what's going to drive it up is that it's going to become more and more well known, the desperate need that there is for silver in these emerging technologies. I kid you not, we get so much about stuff about jobs that don't exist, about like energy field mechanical engineers who are going to be, and this is my term because I don't know what they're going to call them, but it's people who tweak software that in turn causes changes in some kind of an energy field that's built on silver doing something. And of course, I get maybe it's the engine for the floating cars, that kind of thing, right? And who knows? Because it's disconnected. It's in these big blobs that are all associated with our emerging world here. But let me tell you, the same sets about jobs were spot on about Antarctica, right? So I can validate that these sets way the hell back when told me that there would be all these strange jobs popping up in Antarctica, which indeed have manifest. So I give a higher probability that those same sets, even though they have descriptions about jobs about people running anti-gravity forklifts, I bet you those are coming too.
Wow. Well, I have a question that goes into my latest. I'm looking at RVs. You guys are looking at houses. I'm looking at an RV. I'm like, should I wait for a floating RV, a flying RV? Wouldn't that be sweet? I mean, that's all I need.
Maybe they can retrofit it. They'll just retrofit you with a new system.
Okay, no, seriously, Clif. You do have like some kind of floating vehicles, don't you? In the data?
Oh yeah. In the post 2020 period. Okay.
Oh man, I can't wait that long.
I know. That's why I got this 1977 GMC. I can't wait that long. I'm hoping we can retrofit it though, because it'll be just cool as hell if it can float.
Like the DeLorean in Back to the Future.
Exactly. Except you can stop and make a cup of tea.
Can you be the Doc and I'll be Marty? Like when we do that, you'll be the old Doc. I'll be Marty.
Well, I don't know that we can get up to 88 miles an hour. That's my only issue.
Or we'll be mining. Anyway. We'll be mining coins, and we need to get up to 88, terahashes an hour or something.
There you go. Well, hey, let me tell you about that. This guy shared with me that he's got NVIDIA tablets. You ever see those? He got one.
Of course, Mr. Tech has it. There it is.
Exactly. I've also got one. I don't have the wraparound one.
I can't think of if it says on it.
Is that like an iPad?
Basically, yeah, but Android device essentially.
Yeah, but it's designed around a particular chipset that's become really highly prized for mining. So this guy got a deal shield on those. Yeah, exactly.
This might have it actually. Yeah.
And he got a bunch of those, and he's got them all racked out, with fans blowing across them, hash mining like mad on Blake 2S and on the Ethereum ERC20 there, right? And he timed it perfectly. And just like Kathy had asked me today, because I was telling her we're going to set up a node for these other reasons, right? And do a little bit of mining on the Ethereum network. And she said, oh, it's noisy because we've had servers here and it drove us both crazy, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to put it in the back part of the house, assuming we get the house and that sort of thing. However, anyway, she was saying, well, can you make any money at it? And I said, well, you remember Roger, right? He had scored this crate load of those things where they were factory refurbished and they couldn't be sold or whatever the deal was. And so we're talking, I think he actually had 64 of them. I mean, really a big deal at a very low price. And he racked them all out, has guaranteed power supplies, and he's mining with them. And he's made over $500,000 in Ethereum and Litecoin mining in the last 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Usually you lose on that because everything I've seen in the past, even when I was doing it, just, okay, the electric bill says no, it's not worth it anymore. Of course, that was about 3 years ago.
Exactly, and that's the issue. He was losing when he first started off. He thought this was he was just goofing around. He didn't know what he could do with them. He could not, in his circumstances, which I won't go into, sell these things. And so he decided trying to figure out ways to use them. And so he found out that the chip was used this way, the graphics chip was used for the mining, and so he started doing it. It wasn't really a producer. But what got him, of course, was he mined through the last part of 2016 into early 2017 and got hooked up there with the Ethereum rise. And so he'd been, getting a lot. He had a lot of Ethereum.
Well, yeah, he was probably mining when they were like $8-9 each.
Right, exactly. That makes sense.
Even cheaper than that. He got in. He was doing some mining on them when they were less than 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he may be at the point where it doesn't make sense. But yeah, when you get in on one of these things early, when the hash is easier to crack, you're making coin left and right. And then back then, again, if it was a few dollars, and it was even maybe worth it then, or just barely worth it then, you can imagine now when it's pushing $350.
That was his issue. Hardly worth it. Yeah.
Let's talk about my new favorite, Litecoin.
Yeah, cool stuff, huh?
I mean, to me, if Bitcoin is not going to be available to the masses because it's going to be too expensive to do, the coffee transaction, I see 7 billion people who are going to be using Litecoin.
Yeah, and they have a lot more of them to use. It's a hell of a lot faster and a lot cheaper and really rigid. It's been through the SegWit experience already, and in that sense, it's solid in terms of its ability to perform and blindingly fast. Okay, I've watched the point of sale system deal with Litecoin versus Bitcoin on a sale, and where the guy actually gave up on the Bitcoin and went ahead and paid cash for his pot, as opposed to waiting for the Bitcoin to transmit through, right? And so, but the Litecoin, boom, just it's there.
Now, won't Bitcoin be doing that though after this thing, the SegWit or whatever? Wouldn't that help a little bit?
Yeah, but there's another issue too. Okay, it's the same issue that affects gold. say that Bix was 100% wrong. Okay, he had his head in the Grand Canyon, and there wasn't anything there at all. Okay, so that would leave us 4 billion ounces of gold. Well, with 7 billion people, that's less than 1 ounce per person, so it's not possible to swap things with gold. It just becomes too expensive. It holds too much value. Kind of the same deal with Bitcoin, because there's 21 million Bitcoins coming out, and there's still 7 billion people, and a whole ton of those Bitcoins have been lost. Just like I lost that 1,110 Ethereum. So under those kind of circumstances, you've got a net 21 million that maybe might even be 2 to 3 million that are gone already and won't be recovered. Yep. So under the circumstances, even if Bitcoin becomes extremely fast, it'll end up being, just like was in those reports, a big store of value that will settle large debt between corporations and businesses.
Just like gold.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Litecoin, I mean, the it's not only the speed, it's the cost. The cost is so much cheaper than Bitcoin and even Bitcoin's plans. If they put this SegWit in, I'm no expert on it, but from what I hear, SegWit will really fix the safety issues and the problems there, but it really won't fix the long-term scalability issues. And they're hoping for Lightning Network to get implemented there and things like that. All of it will be too expensive for the everyday Joe to go down and buy a cup of coffee. And that's what I think. That's what Litecoin will walk in there and say, hey, if you don't want to serve 7 billion people, I'll serve 7 billion people.
Well, it's kind of like a $100 bill, a $50 bill, a 20, a 10, a 5, and a 1, and Bitcoin's the 100. You don't keep walking in a coffee shop with 100 everywhere you go.
Yeah, Litecoin's the silver dime.
Yeah,
that's it. So
it's interesting though too. You have to understand too that a lot of people don't really conceptualize it this way, but these things are actually active databases in RAM continuously. So there's a Bitcoin database, an Ethereum database, a Litecoin database, and they're all running continuously. Not necessarily on my PC right now, but on somebody somewhere that blockchain is being run. This is where Ethereum gets its real power now, is because they designed in there all of these hooks into their blockchain so that you can run other stuff in that same virtual machine. And they even drew up some rules and said, here's our Ethereum virtual machine. I mean, these guys were really smart about this. And then they realized we're going to have to charge for things. And so we're going to have to charge for computation as well as storage. And see, this is where, I know what I'm talking about, right? I've done it. I used to have to write little tiny C code that would run in the back of phones, in the back of seats on airplanes. So I had to optimize and tighten and all of this. So I know good code when I see it. And so I can look at some of these, out of the 340 that I read, to find the ones that I put in the report, I can look at code and construction and the people behind it, even if there isn't code just yet available, and say, okay, these people understand that, they're going to be paying X amount of gigawave for every transaction. They're going to be paying X amount of gigawave for every little byte sequence that's being stored, and for this transmission of this message. And so they're going to write their code in such a way that it'll minimize those costs over time, because we're actually dealing with the operational costs of a global computer. And so, everybody's always afraid of AI. AI, if it were ever going to exist, will exist off of the blockchain somewhere at its base, because that's a continuously functioning, continuously being processed chunk of software where that code is constantly being executed. So it's just a weird kind of a concept. And I don't know that space aliens would come up with it. Okay, I can see how we got the transistor from the reverse engineered crash in 47, right? I can see how we got fiber optics and how they had what I called glass, generic linguistically activated substrate that was material that you could write stuff on, and it would do things based on what you wrote on it, programmable, if you will, right? I could see all of that, but I don't see their kind of minds coming up with our distributed kind of architectures and tech and stuff here. Because if you really, as a programmer, if you want to think about these blockchains in a particular way, they're fantastic things for writing programs against, for all kinds of executions, a la Reggie Middleton's kind of approach, right? You don't have to simply store stuff like a lot of these ICOs, you're going to see people saying, oh, we've got the way to store stuff on the blockchain. It's like, okay, storage is cheap, guy. I can buy a Tera RAM like mad, and it's cheap. So what's your claim to fame there? So, but Reggie says, no, we can make a dynamic thing that runs up here and does this and interacts and communicates and stuff. And when you find a few of those, boy, you get into some really good stuff.
Hey, do you have any, this is a loaded question, on Veritasium? Do you have any price projections at all of
Sure.
how high and when?
Yeah, I have two forms of price projections. I have one that was communicated to me and I can't verify in any way, okay? But I was told by a source that I deemed to be reliable, and so this is secondhand. So this guy that I know to be reliable said, hey, I was told by some big, huge bankers in Wall Street that they were expecting and were writing up in their reports that Veritasium would go $500 when it goes live on a big exchange where it can be converted, they said seamlessly, okay, to USD. It would go $500. And they expected that to occur this summer, and that they expected that it would be $5,000 a token in a year from that point. Okay, wow. So if it happened in July, it's going to take it that time to go up tenfold, and it's because of the utility. I've got a friend of mine, a South American fellow, shout out to Patagonia there, who's offered me some Veritasium, who's holding it for me. I only need a couple for my purpose because I want to use Reggie's services later on. I'm not trying to see it as a wealth gainer. But because of a curious set of circumstances similar to Joe's and how we connected around data in the name, my resource down there, I have a connection through that to some of the history or some of the future history of Veritasium. So in that scenario, so looking at the long-range data that's coming out around those sets, I'm seeing numbers that are indicating that we might be looking at Bitcoin kind of levels. Okay, wow. This time, so equivalent to Bitcoin this time next year. So if Bitcoin this time next year is at $18,008 in June and July of next year, then we could see Veritasium maybe that high as well.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hey, as far as use case, I'm probably one of the first guys to use Veritasium. I bought Reggie's report on Ripple for 4.5 Veri, and I love his report. So I'm like the guy who bought the two pizzas, the first Bitcoin purchase for like 10,000. I feel like that, but I knew what I was doing. I paid 4.5 Veri for Reggie's report, and it's an awesome report on Ripple.
Cool. I don't like Ripple. It annoys me.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't like it either, but I made a little money on it, so I'm like, I'll give some back.
Yeah, you can make a lot of money on even the shit coins. That's going to be the issue up here in the future. Pretty soon you'll see, we know it's not a bubble. I was talking to some Irish guys today and some Germans, and we know it's not a bubble because one of the Germans had said, boy, yeah, they're deep into it here, that, his sister has heard of Bitcoin. And I asked, well, what's his sister do? Well, it turns out she makes software for one of the automakers over in Germany. So, of course, she's heard of Bitcoin, right? But in the Irish guys, that's all they've heard about it. So it's just really starting. But we've got stuff in the data saying we'll be looking at, Bremen beer hall coins coming, that kind of thing. So some obscure town in Germany is going to have a coin come out around the Oktoberfest that they'll use to finance the buying of some giant container of beer. And we haven't seen that yet. So we're years away from that. When that stuff starts happening, then we'll know that we've actually jumped from North America into Europe a little bit. And then there's all of the, the hot Damastans and China and Russia and all of that area to go into. So we may, Joe, I don't know, maybe you'll actually see live long enough and you'll see the first downturn in cryptos, 60, 80 years out from now.
Wow. So but basically, when I keep telling people, look, it's like, and I can't say this with 100% certainty, but I'm like, everything in crypto space right now looks like you just can't lose. Like even if it's a junk ICO
you
that
can
ends
lose.
up being complete garbage, it's like if you
I bought
get in
a
and
couple
get
that I
out.
didn't like. I bought a couple that they're not going to pay. I'm like, well, yeah, you could throw a dart, and most of the ones you hit in the long term won't be around. But if you find the gems, you're golden. You know, a lot of these guys just pop right at the beginning, and then people try to get their investment out, and boom.
Yeah.
And there's no there. The issue too now is copycatting. So I've been sort of trying to warn people that you can lose money because we've seen it where you get a really successful like the Pay Token or Populous or some of these others, and you pretty soon you're going to see their white papers, a few words changed, popped up, and so on. So you got to know how to evaluate, right? So you got to know, is there a history in GitHub, or is there a faked up history that tells you how long they've been having a repository in GitHub on their code? And you know, you can cheat on that if you know what you're doing, but there's always the backups because the internet, everything is stored. So and so some of these things I know it's like, oh no, you know, don't put your money into this. This is I don't even know that they'll actually have a coin offering. They're probably just going to take your Ethereum and run. And it's terrible. That once that really starts happening, then we'll get that wave of fear. Everything will calm down really quick because grandma won't be driven by the greed anymore
bucks,
from her nephew, right? From her nephew Joe there making all the bucks. So what she's going to do is she'll be afraid, and so she'll back off and say, okay, what's this really about?
Right. Well, there's a lot to choose from, and as you said, way early, guys, get ready for summer. It's going to be basically ICO mania. It's going to start. There's going to be ICOs for everything. They're coming out, and there's going to be people who ultimately get railroaded. You're going to get screwed. But
right there. Right there, baby.
That's the one.
Yeah, thanks for putting the report. I loved your commercial.
Hot rocket days. I mean, $99, I can't even tell you how much money I've already made off just knowing this information. Oh. Please, people, please join the party. This is a party. We are celebrating that we got in early. We finally made a right decision. We're celebrating, and we're waiting for everybody else. And there's still, I live right near Silicon Valley, so close to Silicon Valley. They have no idea what's going on. Very few. There's some cryptocurrency type companies starting up, blockchain type companies starting up, but the majority of the schmoes who work for the tech companies, these guys should know what's happening, and they don't. They really are
leaving us behind. That's what's like everything, like healthcare. The rest of the world is leaving America behind. You either jump on and go with the change, or sit back here and do what we always do. You know, and it's like we used to be number one. Used to be America creating these things, this new technology. Now it's, you know, Sweden and the UK and these other countries. It's like, man, but you like you said, you look at the white paper. Oh man, that sounds really great. Like the Pay Token, the Veritasium, all these things. Like, man, these are really good ones. But what I would say too, you know, with that little picture you showed of the rocket ship for the report, you know, if you got like 20, you know, say someone scraped together 20 Ethereum and they want in on some ICO action. Look, I'm not here to double or triple my Ethereum. I want to go, you know, balls to the wall and make a big move. I'm just going to advise you, people, if it were me, I wouldn't take all 20 and say, oh, I think that's got a great white paper, I'm going all in. Honestly, I might take 5, put it in there, wait for another ICO that sounds good, put another 5 in there. You know what I mean? So you spread it. Just like they say, you know, you don't put all your money in Microsoft or Google. You spread your portfolio out. So this is no different. You know, just for people to understand, take your Ethereum, that's your money, so to speak, in this. Don't just dump it on one. I know there's going to be stories where people did, and they say, oh, well, I did, and I made a bandit. Like these people who, I put all 4K. You guys talked about Ripple, and I said, F it, I'm putting 4K in there now. I might got $200,000. Thanks, guys. And I get it. You know, those are great stories, but you could have lost too. You know, we got to be fair.
You don't hear about the losing stories. Well, they don't get on the internet and brag about that.
Unless you saw the thing.
We do get the emails that we've gotten a lot of emails that I've had to refer out to Joe and I think a couple to you, Bix, about how, you know, they followed the advice and were able to pay off their student debt. I just got one the other day from a woman who was able to pay off her student debt. She's like 29, I think, and bought a new car. It was $11,000 off of it because of hail damage, but she was quite happy with it nonetheless. So, you know, so there are people out there doing things this way, and you put at risk real hard-earned money. I mean, like money you're pulling out of the man, so to speak, right, on your weekly paycheck. So it's really gut-wrenching for me to say, well, this is something that I would recommend, that I would put my own money into. And so far it's panned out, but at some point I would crap out, so basically
God help you that day, because you're going to get roasted. Clif High, the shyster, he got it wrong. I told you guys to stay away from him. Dude, he's got 1,500 right. He got the 1,501 wrong.
All right. Well,
we just saw that on the latest pullback. It's like all the haters came out on the YouTube comments. Yeah. It was crazy.
And I said it'll be right back to 300 before you know it. Settle down. And guess what? It was right back to $300. And it's going to go.
Escalated fast.
Instantly. That was quick. Next day. Here you go. It's back up. So
I have a lot of my silver guys who are so downtrodden, and I've been saying for years, you got to do both. Get in the cryptos too, and then take little profits as you go and restack your silver pile. And they're saying that's the best thing I ever did, is get into the cryptos, and then every once in a while I'll take 10% out of my winnings and I'll buy silver. And I got guys who refuse to believe that silver and the cryptos are fighting the same battle. And I'm trying to explain that this is the exact same battle. It's just using different tools. Before 2008, 2009, there wasn't cryptocurrencies. All there was gold and silver. That was our only choice. Now there is a choice, and they can move together. And silver will be needed for other things besides money anyway. So it's a kind of a no-brainer, but it's so hard to pry people away from that mentality of silver and gold is the only money.
Yeah,
and it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I remember that as a kid. I mean, I hadn't had much experience with money, but we moved to Germany, and the pfennig at the time, the pennies, right, were aluminum. And it's like, wait a second, there's no weight there, right? Because I've been used to a silver here in the U.S., and silver dimes and quarters. And this is before the smushing of all of the coinage. And so we go over to Germany, and there's all this aluminum because that's what they had. And so I knew intrinsically this stuff is not money. It's terrible. But we're in one of those weird times, guys. I mean, people can do some extraordinary times and do some extraordinary things for their lives in times like this. Everything is hugely in flux. And I just, it really annoys me because of the wasted energy of, my brother's life, for instance, and stuff. But that people would miss this kind of thing. And so I like to get out there and jump up and down and say, look, people, look, if only you want to go and do that, look what could happen, right? And so the woman that, changed her life, got a new car, she's not stopping. She's going on. There's going to be millionaires created in this. Now, at the moment, the billionaires are really pissed because all of us are crowding them out. Yep. And so, so we're only taking 20 Ethereum, right? But get this, that 20 Ethereum on a properly weighted transaction might bump out a 4 million Ethereum transaction, and there's no way in the mempool for this to happen, for the processing for the miners to discriminate at that level. So because they're not discriminating on the transaction itself, so it's truly egalitarian. So if I take my little 20 Ethereum order and say I'm going to split it up and I'm going to do 5 on a particular ICO, we're going to do an ICO about Joe growing hair. Okay, and so not a chance in hell.
That's a risky one, baby.
I got this cut this morning.
But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this. We're going to put our 5 in on Joe's hair ICO, right? and Bix, that you're going to be able to short this later on, so you need a lot of those. So you're going to try and get 1,000 Ethereum in on Joe's hair ICO. Those transactions are equal insofar as the content and the mining. The mining doesn't care about what's actually in the content. What it cares about is the gas price underneath and the limit on that gas price. So if you set your gas price up high enough and your limit up high enough, you bump out the multi-million-dollar billionaire trying to buy and come in and scoop them all up. And you do that for your measly little 5 Ethereum order. And there's not anything that they can do about it because of the way that the Ethereum's mempool is structured.
And not to mention, if you get your order in first, like if let's say if you put your gas up and they put their gas up, right, and you've got equal, as long as you click that mouse first, you're just going to get handled.
Everybody who's listening who doesn't know what Clif's talking about, go do your homework. Do your homework. Learn this stuff. It's not rocket science. It's computer science. It's not rocket science. But it is so beneficial. And
can you hold that picture up again when you say that?
It's not this. This is rocket science. You can buy rocket science for $99. But once you do it a few times, you practice with quarters, nickels, and dimes, and you will not regret learning this stuff. You will not regret learning about cryptocurrencies, about the blockchain, about all these new companies that are being developed, because these new companies are going to take the place of all the old companies. It's a new way of doing business, and you're in on the very ground floor of it right now. If you get off the couch, go over to your computer. Well, you're at your computer right now, and go to YouTube and type in any question you have. It's all right there. It's an amazing school at your fingertips for these cryptocurrencies, because all these tech guys love to make videos, and they love to explain how they did it, and then they get 50
bragging
bucks.
Bragging rights.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's nothing holding you back, anybody back right now. As long as you're listening to this video, you're in the 1% of 1% who knows about this stuff.
Yep.
And you can do cool stuff too. I mean, like you can buy old computers, and you can use these old clunky computers to heat your house while you teach yourself about mining some of these coins. A lot of the altcoins don't have big mining pools, so you know what that means. Say that someone comes on up. You know how I talk about people coming into the ICO world, and they're either creating train tracks or they're building engines, okay, to run on the train tracks, like Veritasium, because he's not building Ethereum networks. He's not building mining, any of that. He doesn't have any protocols or code for it. He's using the Ethereum protocol. So if we think of the protocol as the train tracks, every time somebody comes along with a new protocol, they need to have miners. And so if you say that you don't have much money, you can go and you can buy an old PC, an old clunky, 2 or 386, one of these really old boxes, $12, garage sale, something like that. Plug it in, put it to work with some of the mining software, just running an old DOS in one of the shells, and just have it run the software against one of these new emerging coins. They have deals for miners the way that they have deals for people getting in on the early ICOs. Okay, so some of them are using the idea of proof of stake. I'm sure people have heard POS and as opposed to POW, which is proof of work. Proof of stake is like, I got skin in the game, so I'm going to hold coins. And because I'm holding coins, I'm both providing a floor for the value, but proving that I'm a miner and I'm in this as a business, knowing what I'm doing. A lot of these altcoins are starting to do that, and it rewards early miners disproportionately to the big guys later on, but it makes it very more egalitarian later in the process, because you don't have giant Chinese companies able to come on in and take over the mining industry, so to speak. Because as they mine more coins, your proof of stake can algorithmically be increased by the increasing speed and processing on the network itself, if that means anything at all.
Yeah, as you say, 90% might just got, over their head. What was that?
That was
right,
me.
but basically what I'm saying is that BIX can make money with supporting the new train track guys that are building new train tracks with these less run protocols that they've just developed, because they need miners all around the globe to mine this. And so instead of getting 25 coins for processing a block, you might get 50 or 100 or 2,000 coins for processing a block. Yeah. True, the coins aren't worth very much now, but the idea is to, just like little tiny grains of gold in panning, it's the accumulation that makes the effort worthwhile, right? Just like my buddy that was using the things basically to heat his house. I mean, he went to the trouble of building a little box around him of riveted aluminum or pop riveted aluminum, and had fans going to take the stuff into the heating duct of the house. Worked beautifully for him. Also kept the dust. He had little filters and the whole deal. Just beautiful little setup, duct work everywhere. And then in the end, they end up with $400 and some odd thousand for his work, as well as no heating bill. so pretty good.
Want to change subjects a little bit. Your reports, the Alta reports, not the Bitcoin ones or cryptos, yeah, but some of the older Alta. When I say older, not even that old. Last 2 years, talked heavily about the banking crisis, naming specifically Italy. And a couple of weeks ago, Friday, we had 2 Italian banks, decent-sized ones, fail completely. And it's like, once again, another big bank buys them up for $1. And they said, the European Central Bank or the European Union in their rules said, well, we're going to do, remember, they changed it so that they do bail-ins going forward after the bailout. So if anything happens, people will, certain bondholders or investors are going to get cleaned out first before the taxpayer has to step up. They pretty much went right over that and said, we've got permission from ourselves to go back to bailout, and the 17 billion taxpayer funded bailout. Thank you. So when I see that kind of crap happening, first of all, your webbot nailed it. Okay, nailed it. But this is reason why people are looking at gold and silver and now cryptos, because no matter what country you're in, you're an Italian now, you're pissed off. Hey, that's okay. You know what? Looking at my crypto portfolio, I'm not even upset. Go ahead, bail them out, bail them in. Doesn't even affect me. I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, we're in a parallel system, and that's the way it's going to go. This is against Bix's argument that the banks are going to fail. I think that indeed, just the way the data had shown, regional banks are going to collapse, and then somebody will come along and pump them up and buy them out. But every time that happens, it's basically watching the energy of that collapse be transferred into the crypto world. And so we're transferring all of the wealth out of the old fiat system into the crypto world spasmodically, and probably the only way we know how to do it, which is distributed, all of us around the planet, a couple of dollars, couple of euros, couple of lira at a time, that kind of thing. And so that's just really what's going on, and it'll continue probably certainly all the rest of my life. I mean, this will be going onward. They haven't even started this process in areas of the country, whole countries that don't even know what a crypto is. And, so it'll go on and on and on. It's going to be really staggering to watch. I went through small examples of it when the French went through their upset with their currency and swapped out just the old franc for the new franc. And I've seen it in the Vietnamese currency and this kind of a thing. And at no point in a collapse does everything simply fall apart. It just changes and it's different. And this is where opportunity lies, is in recognizing that it's collapsing, but it won't collapse. That there's going to be somebody that's going to come along and find a utility, or way in which to make the thing that's collapsing serve them, at least temporarily. And then it may go further into collapse, a year later, that sort of a deal, right? There's politicians, there's bankers, there's someone who will profit off of this. As long as all that's ongoing, go about your lives, adapt to what's going on relative to the cost of the daily goods that'll be going up, because we're entering hyperinflation. But it's not like we wake up on Tuesday morning and, there's the hyperinflation flag. Okay, now we're in for it. Doesn't happen that way. It's been happening ongoing all of my life, and now it's just going to get really visible, and a lot more people will bitch and moan about it. But also a lot of people, like myself, will say, hey, I've been studying cryptos and Bitcoin and all of this. I understand where we're at, and now's the time to not use dollars anymore, because it's going to hyperinflate. And we're seeing the impact of that hyperinflation in the cryptocurrencies as software comes along and munches in and decides it's going to help us eat money.
I think from my standpoint, I talked to you, Clif, for the last few months about whether or not we'll see a full stop banking freeze like almost happened in 2008 when there was no cryptocurrency, mind you. And now I have this theory that there's good guys behind the scenes trying to make some kind of smooth transition now. And that smooth transition, it won't be the full stop where millions of people die. It'll be, like you said, the slow crashing. But what it'll also do, it'll suck that money. I always thought we needed the full crash to get rid of the bad guys, because they got all the money hidden away in the Alps and in the Cayman Islands. But this transition may suck that money out from the hidden spots trying to get into the cryptos and to gold and silver at some point when the manipulation ends. But it's not going to make that money disappear. It's just going to suck it out of its hiding place to go into the real assets that will be kind of going up in crazy amounts over the next, how long will this be?
Look at how much actual money they created, because it has to account for all of it, doesn't it? I mean, wouldn't you reckon that the if indeed, as I'm saying, we're in a transitionary phase, then I would think that the period of time is going to be equal to how long it takes us to take all of the wealth out of the fiat and put all of that wealth into the new software money of cryptos. So you said 150 years silver's been suppressed.
Yeah.
Bo Polney talks about 252-year cycle on currencies. I actually suspect that that's what we're seeing is the energy of 252 years in our currency experiment now has to flow into the beginning of our software experiment. We don't know how long it's going to last. So if we're looking at it as an energy exchange, then the initiation of the point would have to be many multiples of the time that it took for that wealth to go from one system to the other the last time that happened. And that would have to be divided by the sheer number of people that we've got. So I suspect that if I'm correct, that we'll reach a crescendo or a threshold, and after like 2020, from that point on, by 2020, which is why I put those sections in the report, we'll be at a point where we'll be living in crypto land, okay? Right now, we're following Joe, okay? He's the young man here. He's out heading into crypto world. He's got his mining stuff, and he's doing crypto business, and pretty soon he'll be buying things with cryptos and this sort of a deal. And we're walking along right behind him. But most of the planet is not even understand that this part of Earth is being explored. And here we are, the trailblazers on it. After 2020, the language indicates that most of the human population is becoming aware that crypto land exists. So from that point on, it's basically like global mainstream, where you can say it in China and people understand you're talking Litecoin versus Ethereum and it's no big deal. You know, they actually grasp that. Doesn't mean it's penetrated to everybody in China. Just means that from 2020 onward, it's that level of mainstream. And so I think we're going to see the rush up. There's a book written by some economist that shows a chart of what the Industrial Revolution and the big things in history have done to the economic fortunes of the planet, patterned against population growth. And the Industrial Revolution was this huge exponential uptick in both. And I think we're just at the beginnings of another one of those. So sort of like a species level crocodile tooth in terms of the chart. And so, you know, I don't know that I can keep my head looking up that high that long.
Wow. What you mentioned recently about earthquakes, like, and you said, you know, may not the timing, or maybe it may not be something, but it's in the data, like coming soon.
Yeah, plus or minus 9 days. We've had it for a long time. Pacific Northwest, it's going to get the shit kicked out of us.
That's where you live, right?
You got it. And even where we're contemplating living, it'll be at least where we're contemplating living, we wouldn't have to worry about tsunamis or anything. So not really sweating that. And also the structure, it would be sound under the circumstances. But the infrastructure around here, I don't know how much of that is going to take a big whoomp. Last time we had an earthquake like this was 2001. And here in Olympia, we lost one of our major bridges. And it took them a couple of years to put it together. This will be larger damage. It's part of the whole Earth expansion stuff, the strange energies, the planet reacts to all of this stuff, and we have the eclipse going on at the same time that we have this alignment with Jupiter and Saturn that is coming up, and the alignment is less of an issue at an astrological level than how they're tugging on the planet. So the data sets have got all kinds of earthquake damage occurring across the U.S., but it's not like the whole U.S. shuts down as a result of it, but it is like it affects the GDP. So it's like at least a Katrina level thing in the sense that the domestic product of the nation will be impacted.
And
I live exactly on top, the very end of the San Andreas Fault.
Oh boy!
So yeah, there's a little fault under my house, literally. Because it's like 5 miles away. They keep coming by with their little things and poking it in the ground. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Oh, you're right on top of a fault there. I'm like, wow, just another reason to run from Oakland.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a radon detector?
No.
Ooh, better get one right away and shove it in the basement. If it goes off, radon is a precursor gas to the earthquake going off. Plus, radon will kill you if you breathe it a lot, and it comes out of earthquake faults.
All right. Every time I talk to you, I get scared to death about what's going to happen.
But it's okay. It's not, the earthquakes don't kill you. It's all the bad architecture we live in.
Dude, it's whatever falls on your head. All my silver will come tumbling down on my head.
Say,
That's
why
I was in a bad one, you know. I was in 8.3 in Mexico City.
You told us about that one.
Yeah, walking down a set of stairs, and you know, and that was a really nasty one. So it is indeed the architecture around you. And if you got to go through an 8.3, you need to be in a 400-year-old Mexican built a place that's entirely made out of giant stones that use no mortar.
Yeah, run for your life.
Yeah. Around here, though, you know, you get into the void. You know about that, right, Bix? The triangular void.
Oh yeah, like in a doorstop or.
No, doors don't do it because doors are okay. Doors are part of a quadrilateral kind of a thing. So they have a beam across the top. So in an earthquake, they're going to do this until they fall over on you. So getting underneath a door does nothing. I mean, they've been teaching this in the military for years. So what you want to find is you want to find a refrigerator and get right next to it. You want to find a file cabinet and get right next to it. Because what happens is stuff falls on the file cabinet full of paper, but the file cabinet full of paper can't compress, and it forms a void, and it's called the triangle of life, or the voids of life. And when they pull people out of earthquakes, we actually helped them in the Mexico earthquake, because I was there on a software gig. The whole place is filled with these little green Volkswagen taxis, and I'm there with a software gig, and then there's a big earthquake. Stuff goes on. We go to the airport. Other stuff happens. I have to hang around, and while we're there, it's like, well, we might as well help out, you know. Still got parts of that suit that I was wearing, you know, because I had to present, right? And so I still got parts of that suit as a memorial. And you know, when I came home, it was like I had to say, "Don't worry, it's not my blood." So never good words.
I think we lost Bix. See if I can.
Earthquake.
Yeah, I'll pause this one. Yeah, earthquake. Hang on. All right, I got the recording paused. Let's see.
Okay, give me 2 minutes here to check the pups, and I'll be right back. Okay.
Go ahead.
Hey.
Cliff says, "Oh, I must have had an earthquake."
I was like, you guys had frozen. I'm like, oh shit, what's happening?
Yeah, we lost you. I paused the recording.
Where'd Cliff go?
He's out. He's like, all right, I'll go check my pups real quick. I'll be right back.
I'm getting a lot of echo now.
Are you?
That's better now.
Okay.
Yeah, they always screw with my. Whoever it is, they always screw with my stuff.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, this earthquake talk. Maybe one just hit."
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you never know. I got to get a radon detector now.
Yeah, but even here they talk about that. You know, always have a radon detector in your house. Like
they never talk about it here.
That's weird.
We get the duck and cover stuff.
Yeah, get your safe space. There's an active shooter. Get your duck and cover and
the
sit
dogs
there.
Are okay.
Yeah, I know. Right when we were talking about the earthquake, you never know. Yeah, I've never had that happen. You guys froze, and then my whole computer shut down.
We knew it was an earthquake.
Yeah, I didn't smell the radon. What's going on?
You never do. It's never the ones you smell that get you.
Exactly. Okay, where were we?
Yeah, let me start it up. Yeah. All right, so I just had to pause it. We lost Bix. We thought maybe we lost him to an earthquake or something live on scene here. But turns out no.
I
went to look for a void. Find that void.
Those little triangles, though, they'll save you. I've been in so many earthquakes I couldn't count. I was in a tornado in Kansas, threw a number 10 can of peas from a local grocery store we were renting there. This is in Leavenworth. Through the clapboard house We were hiding in the closet. We didn't know what the hell was going on, you know. And my brother and I were in this closet, and all of a sudden, and there's this hole punched through the side of the house, through the closet, and the canopies took the door and the frame and the hinges and everything right off, because there's pressure going, the windows are popping and all of this kind of stuff as the tornado goes through. I was in 2 hurricanes, one on land and one out at sea. The one at sea was a lot nicer.
Is this how you got all those scars?
No, the scars are from things like, actually the damage I've suffered in those kind of things has been mainly broken bones. Okay, so it didn't really show. Scars I've gotten from work, doing extraction kind of stuff. So I worked the green chain when I was a kid, where you'd go out and work in the forest and help harvest wood, right? And there's this very deadly thing called choke setting, where you'd grab this chunk of steel cable with these little burrs that'll just rip your flesh to shreds, sticking out of the steel everywhere, and you've got gloves that barely will protect you against that, and you're a young, thin kid, and you grab this thing, and behind it is like maybe 400 yards of that steel 3/4 inch cable. And you grab this and you run down the hill following these loggers that are falling trees like mad ahead of you, and you wrap these chokes around the tree and signal the guy up at the top of the hill on the boom, and then you get the hell out of the way as he jacks it up and yanks it up the hill. And sometimes you set it well and you're okay. Sometimes stuff happens and you die. In my case, it was mainly little things, steel cable going through the thumb. Another steel cable when I was doing repair work went through this thumb. I had a saw go through a leg, had a knife here, a bit of a sword fight. I used to do this stuff called Aikido, which is like Aikido, only it's the sword action itself. And at some point you start messing with real steel, and shit happens.
You know what's amazing about this? If by chance you didn't make it, log clobbered you over the head, or that number 10 can went through the side of your head, there'd be no WebBot report. There'd be no me on you. I mean, I'd be doing probably YouTube videos, but I would never be using the word WebBot or prediction this and, hey, get into these cryptos. This report came out and talks about. I wouldn't probably have any right now. I wouldn't even know. Maybe, who knows if I wouldn't even know about them. One guy,
this is well, this is why I say universe likes you, Joe, because I can tell this.
I think it likes you more.
I know universe likes me. I keep doing stupid shit, and it keeps letting me live. I've been in so many boat sinkings you wouldn't imagine.
Really?
I was almost drowned out here in the Nisqually River. That would have been in the late 70s. We were living in town at this other house, and the people next door were moving out. And in the entire time they'd been here, they'd never been down any of our rivers or anything. It was a hot, hot, hot summer day. This is before St. Helens blew. So it was like 79. And they wanted to go on a boating trip. And I knew better, and Kathy knew better. But I decided, okay, I'll take you, right? And so they arranged to get a big boat, inflatable life raft, and we put it into the Nisqually River. But these guys were drinkers. And so they had beer that they floated behind us in inner tubes that had little cutouts with the beer to keep cool and stuff. And so I was basically the only sober one on the boat. And I had told them when we started off, I've done this before, I'll take you down the river. It's dangerous. People die there. You got to know what the hell you're going to do. And when we get down to the end of the river, if you get out at the wrong spot, you're going to get sucked into this mud, and all of us could not save you. So don't get out till I tell you. That kind of thing. Anyway, but they started drinking a little early. I tried to tell them, no, this isn't going to work. I tried to get rid of the beer. That didn't work. And so I tell them, okay, everybody do exactly as I say, and maybe we'll survive this. And so there's this point in the river where they really wanted to go. It's where all these eagles nest. There's all kinds of action with bird kind of stuff. And it's all this cliffside that, as you're going down the river, is off on the left, and it rises up very steep. And it's the river itself sort of flattens off onto the right. The problem is there's this gouge there, and there's always some kind of a log jam. And sure enough, it had been a rough winter. There were a lot of sharp logs facing right at us as we're heading down in this big yellow raft. And the problem is with this, that the natural tendency is to try and pull with your oars to pull the whole boat over to the nice, gentle, flat spot of the river that you see on the other side of the snag, instead of the raging torrent that takes you around and whips you up on the side of the cliff, right? And I knew our only way to survive was to do that torrent side. That if we got moved over there, we would just, and sure enough, it happened. We got sucked right into the logs. The raft got punctured. It started getting swept underneath. I had the raft collapsing around my legs, and I'm standing there trapped in the Nisqually River with all of that river water coming down at me at way too damn cold for me to survive more than 10 minutes. People are freaking out. They're drunk. Guys are throwing up. A couple of people have been injured. There's blood in the water. And there's this one guy right in front of me that's going to get us both killed. So I actually picked him up. He was grabbing for all of his life onto this log, and the water was going to drown him because of the way that he was holding. And so I actually tore his grip loose of the log and pushed him towards the river, because I knew if he wasn't going to hang on to that, he would swim towards the edge, right? And he may get bashed by some stuff further on down, but he was going to sure drown there. And then I did the best thing I'd ever done in my life, took my knife out, stabbed the rest of the raft, and leapt as fast as I could right into that torrent. And whoosh, I was around to the other side of that snag. And we're talking a snag. This is like 200-foot trees with all of their roots and everything just stripped of all the bark, and it's just all these sharp projections. And so you come out of this just covered with cuts everywhere, blood all over. Nobody can tell who's dead and who's half alive. And then, because Nisqually River is in the Nisqually Indian Reservation and also in the military reservation, and this is pre-cell phone or any of that, we had to find our way into the military reservation, find an old tank road, and walk 18 miles out.
Wow.
You've been through quite a few adventures in your few years here on Earth.
I don't think
That's why I say universe likes me. You know, I do all these stupid things that keeps me alive, no matter what. There, this is a deal that Kathy and I have. You know, over the years, she says, you know, you got to honor our deal, which is, yeah, I'll come back.
How long have you been married now?
45 years this year. We
Wow.
just had our anniversary.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
ours is 15 this year, this November.
Cool.
I'm at 2.
2 years.
So this time around 2.
Yeah, that's all right.
It doesn't matter,
somewhere.
dude. It's you can have 45 years shoved into 2 years or stretched out. You know.
Oh no, we're still in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's kind of cool. I mean, like I say, living up here and all of this with the excitement, but I know we're nowhere near the transition that's going to happen just because of the places I go around here, and we've got supposedly high tech everywhere up here. There's hardly people out of Seattle that know any of this stuff going on.
Yeah, it's great.
So,
it's exciting. It's so exciting to be at the ground roots of something that at first you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. And then once you get your head around it and really understand that the world is changing and it's going to change with or without you, and you embrace it, I feel so confident. If Bitcoin drops 50%, I don't even care. I don't even look at it.
Yep.
And through all the years of silver and all that, and I haven't given up at silver at all. I'm still holding on to my silver, still stacking as I take profits in cryptos. A lot of my people are saying when. I've been getting this question for 17 years. When is silver going to end? When's the manipulation going to end? I think the cryptocurrencies, it's going to help in the manipulation because it gets people buying physical silver and physical gold. But I also think because of the cryptos came onto the scene, it's going to allow for that longer transition out of the old system and into something new.
But it's going to save our ass.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I mean, I don't want to live in Mad Max world.
No.
I would rather live in Blade Runner world.
Yeah,
it's true. And I have a lot of people saying, well, silver and gold have been money for thousands of years. And I said to them, what do you think would be easier for people to adapt to something that's new and move to the cryptocurrencies where you can buy things on your phone, or a move to getting everybody silver and gold coins that they got to keep in their pocket and wander around with and buy? First of all, we don't have any. Most people don't have any. Everybody's got a cell phone. I mean, they do that kind of transaction now, and the transition from that old system to from our current system to the old system, I don't think is even possible anymore. But from the old system to this new high-tech type of form of honest money, I think it's very possible.
Evolutionary, yeah, just making a step. No, you're
we're evolving.
Yeah, we're not going to go back to that idea of lugging stuff around just on the fear component of it, right? Because, you know, we live in scary worlds now. And so people just don't want to lug something that could be so easily stolen and not recovered. But with your phone and stuff, they're quite conditioned now to, you know, zapping it at Starbucks. That's one of my few luxuries is I'll go in and I'll get a chai latte because I sometimes need the calories, whole milk heated up, especially in the cold winters around here. And I've been shocked over the last couple of years to watch the barista industry evolve into banking. And it's like, I'll stand there sometimes, especially on Monday or Tuesday mornings, when all the state workers are going in and getting coffee before work, if I happen to get synced up with that, and people will go on in and do a dozen or more transactions with their phone and with the barista, moving money back and forth between credit cards, accounts, and banks right there, changing, zapping the machine, getting it zapped back, and this kind of a thing. It's like, wait a second, when did Starbucks turn into a bank? But it's happening right in front of us. So it's just
wonderful.
Really weird. Yeah.
Get rid of the banks. What a great thing.
Yeah. And you can get credit card readers now that you just plug into your phone.
Yeah.
So you want to do business with somebody. I saw this guy buying or selling a cord of firewood and dumped it off with his dump truck and stood there with his thing and swiped the guy's credit card right then and there on his phone and got paid. No cash. Those guys are not going back to lugging around a lot of paper, nor trying to do business where they have to come up with change in a basically what we've got to admit is an old abacus style of keeping track of money, moving them from this pile to that pile, right? And so, I just can't see George Jetson and his buddies using gold and silver that way.
But it still doesn't mean it's going to be crap. It's still going to be going way up in price.
It's going to be highly valuable. Right. I'm actually with Bix, okay? I think there's just tons more gold than anybody allows exists here, and I think so because of Buckminster Fuller, and he's no slouch. His assays were just phenomenal. This guy was an engineer that was a really good thinker. If we just take him at his word, there's at least 5 times what they claim is possible to dig up. But even so, even if we have enough to circulate, it's just so inconvenient to do that circulation, and it's awful hard to do it off-world. And that's what we've got to do is we've got to get up to the next low Earth orbit kind of an economy, and that's where software rules, because it's real easy to get value up and down that way. Yep. And so what are you going to do, with gold and silver at that point? Well, silver is going to be highly valuable with this field control stuff. I've seen some of the effects of it claimed in some devices by military guys, and that's about as far as they go in terms of I'm talking military industrial complex subcontractors, insofar as detailing what they're doing. And I've seen some of these things in the Federal Registers that show these contractors putting forth these plans, and they say, yeah, this device requires, silver of this grade and so on. And so a lot of it is like, that's awful pure silver for, a strictly industrial use. So what else is going on that you're not really talking about?
Hey, Clif, on as far as silver and timing of when the next potential for it to break loose from the assholes who manipulate it, what are the reports saying about timing and what kind of action should we expect?
Well, I was going to disagree, actually. It brings me back to that. I was going to disagree with you because the data actually shows that the cryptos cause the manipulation to end, okay? They're not going to allow it to persist any longer. They're going to actually deflate it because the way it's described in the data sets is as a blockage, okay? So it's not like they're oppressing or anything. It's like they're actually stopping in a blockage. And so that's how it is described as functioning, is that there's a blockage you can't get beyond. Now, according to the data sets, there's a blockage in silver and gold that we won't care about anymore, and we'll just everybody is just going to go around it. and they're going into the cryptos. And as you say, they'll turn their money from cryptos back into gold and silver and thus boost up the price around the blockage. The blockage being the manipulation via the paper debt contract kind of stuff. Because here's the thing. My data sets back, I want to say maybe October of 2015, a year before the election, were telling me that there was a huge shift in the internal generations, and that the generation after the millennials was extremely conservative in the language, had much more conservative language than I'd ever seen. And then it dawned on me, oh, wait a second, maybe the data sets are right, maybe Trump will win because these guys can vote. And they're extremely conservative. And so it went on, right? So the data sets for that same generation are very much like the stuff with the cryptos. It's unmanipulated because those guys are not TV guys. So the words they talk about are not heavily influenced by the talking points that you see in coming through in television scripts from the media, the way it is with Bix's generation. Okay, still yet, there is still some intrusion into your generation of TV speak as the talking points. And there's not in the generations that's post-millennial, because they don't look at any of it. And that generation right there is our silver addicts. They're going to be the ones that see the potential for silver because there's no other option than the cryptos. They don't see the paper debt system in any way, shape, or form as an option, as an alternative. The language is clear. They don't see the idea of making money, making coin, and taking profit from coin and putting it into stocks, bonds, derivatives. No, it doesn't make any sense. So the data sets show them creating companies with it and creating organizations with it, which make more coin. And ultimately, it comes back to the point, what are you going to do with it? And they've already started, because of their affiliation with it, getting into silver. Not so much gold, though. And there's all these connections between that generation and stuff that will go on with basically we could call them like the silver generation, only it won't be born with a silver spoon. It'll be driving a flying car that requires very fine control over fields, and that is exercised through silver contacts or some kind of silver control mechanism. That
is so cool.
I can't wait. I want my little floaty triangle thing,
That
makes commuting easy.
It is awesome. And truthfully, it kind of feels like, for me right now, I'm appreciating asset value in these cryptocurrencies, but I don't want to sell them at all. I want to stick them into new companies and new inventions and new things. That's why I'm looking at all the ICOs, and it is at this point where I'm like, okay, I can participate in building the future. And I look at it a lot like the early 90s when the World Wide Web just came out, and I if I knew then, and I was right in the middle of it in San Francisco, if I knew then what I know now, I would have said, okay, I'm going to get Oracle, I'm going to get this, and this is, I know in 15, 20 years from now, I'm going to look back at this moment in time and say, oh my God, remember those fun days when we got to pick these companies that turned into the biggest companies in the world, and they were honest because they had to use the blockchain? That's going to be an amazing feeling. It already is an amazing feeling.
Well, you know how to get them, too. It's like, it is no secret at all. I'll tell you my secret on these coins. Yes, I read code, and I know really good code. And you notice, by the way, I've cleaned up the website. I went through and cleaned up all my CSS.
A big buy here.
Made it a little easier for the people with the phones and that kind of thing. But it is because in the past I didn't care so much about the presentation of it, because I was always hoping the WebBot stuff would die and I'd go off and get a legitimate job. Anyway, so that was my goal, because my deal with Universe was, well, I'll do this as long as you support it, but the minute it doesn't support me, I'm going to go off and get a legitimate programming job again. And so now I'm going to do some programming and dink around and this kind of thing, especially with the Ethereum network. But the deal with all of this, what were you talking about? Sorry.
The new companies. I'm going out.
The growth with all of this is the way that I do that the secret for finding those guys is just literally the people involved. And so I can see some of these people, And it's they're a generation behind me. Maybe they're 2 generations behind me, but they're still senior programmers. And so you can easily do checks on these people and do run their names and get histories of them on these various places and see what kind of programming they've done in the past, what issues they were wrestling with, which directions they were going. And you find a couple of these guys that have devoted the last 15 years, because they cannot help it, pursuing a particular kind of approach to biometrics, and you know that they would have abandoned it. They would have abandoned it at 10 years if they hadn't had success. So they've got success, and now it's going to be coming on. So that company with its biometric connection to the blockchain is going to be just another Veritasium or another Microsoft or Oracle or Apple a little further on. And so you look at these guys, and then you get some of them where it's really good teams of complementary technical ability. And again, and they're meshed, and they've got a 2 or 3 year history. And you can see that in GitHub and Slack and some of these places that there's been the repositories they've been improving and this kind of stuff. Or you run across a place where, 17 days ago they put up a white paper that's 24 pages long. Big difference, right?
And that they usually stole and changed a few words.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's been almost, we got about 5 minutes left before it's an hour and a half. So what I would like to just say is maybe if you want to add, if Bix needs to add anything, we can keep going. But I want to kind of end this, I guess, at this point with the KIN token that's not out yet. It's to be announced. It's been in your report also, as I think not even necessarily this report. I think it was 2 reports ago, maybe. And, I have my own little Jsnip4 rule is, what does the token do or coin do? If it looks great, no one else is doing it, or it takes something they're doing and it does way better, that's a checkbox. And then my other thing is, how many tokens are they going to release? And if it's in the billions or so, I don't know if I want it. With KIN, it's like trillions. But I think because of what KIN is encompassing, it's a little different story. So maybe can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. The deal there is that you basically got to look at it this way. They've got, just like Twitter, they've got the entire, the equivalent of the entire population of the United States on their system, okay, and growing. So, again, it's population. In order to have effective exchange, you need enough of the stuff to have those exchanges be small enough. So that's why Bitcoin would suffer. And that's why we have to have Litecoin, because there's a whole lot more Litecoin. They'll be cheaper, and therefore we can buy a pack of gum with them and not have to get, giant amounts of stuff in change all the time. And so the Kik social system is unlike Steam. Steam, it's a popularity contest. If you're not popular, you're not going to get a lot of steam. If you are popular, you do get a lot of steam. In the Kik system, it's a true alternative to Facebook and this kind of stuff. It's a true little social media platform, and their interaction is they've got basically a Kik ecosphere. So we can think of it as very much like a closed system, like SimCity or something, right? Yeah. And in this system, you're going to need to have a certain amount of this stuff circulating all the time. And in addition, because they're actually doing it as a coin that's going to touch to the outside, they need to have a certain amount that can go outside the system and circulate as a medium of exchange back and forth within the system. So the trillions part of it does not bother me, because they've got 350 million users, the population in the United States now, and climbing. And these people will need a lot of that stuff to go back and forth just on the way in which they're going to structure this ecosystem, which is very libertarian in the sense of you want it, you've got to help pay for it. And but because of that, those things that are truly in demand will be rewarded by Universe, and people will buy them and so on. And so I suspect that this is going to be a very good coin over a long term, because the Kik environment continues to grow and continues to grow, and it's taking more people from these other places, folding in more stuff. Who knows, a year from now, maybe YouTube suffers some drain, because Kik has gotten such a huge amount of stuff moving into their direction. And so, they've also got the outside money coming in to support the ecosystem in the sense of the Kik advertising. So see, that's the thing about Steam. You don't have outside advertisers desperate to put stuff into Steam, the social media. And if you did, where they were willing to pay for it, well, then Steam would basically have a way to funnel some of that money back into Steam coins. Here you do have that with Kik, so it really does support it. So it's very much like the original tech boom. Are you buying eyeballs or are you buying activity? What are you buying there? I say with that coin, you're buying the dynamic activity and buying into it. How it's going to be distributed and so on, I don't know in terms of how it's going to pan out in terms of how many hours or days and so on. A lot of these, I don't think they're actually going to run the length that they've anticipated. But if you go and look, some of them do, okay, and some of them take a lot longer, and that's just basically universe saying there was no there, or the plan is a little shaky, or the linguistics that were put together, people naturally got a creepy feel from, and that kind of a deal.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add, Bix, or questions for Cliff?
I am blown away as usual when I talk to Cliff. All this stuff.
I'm just old, guys.
I know you've been through a lot. Over the past 6 months, kind of my head has been forming around what our world is going to look like in 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and I was never really in the camp of it's going to be a Mad Max world, but I did see massive chaos. My only question now is I could see how we can transition through that chaos with the cryptos, but how is it going to affect, like right now there's poor people and they're hurting and people, the unemployment's off the charts. Is it going to give us a boom to work with throughout the whole society, or is it just going to be a couple computer guys and savvy people running off and starting their own what's the gulch in
I got you.
What's the name of that gulch in Ayn Rand's book?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. No, it's going to be like Venezuela, though. Look what's going on down there, right? If we do it wrong, that's what happens. So right. You get that. You get the, and that's if we do it wrong. They're in an isolated system, but they were trapped by the U.S. dollar, so they were surrounded. And how they're going to pull out, the only way they're going to pull out is on their own initiative. So this is truly it. And we've got a generation that's been fed the idea of entitlement. This is not a good sign. These people don't understand the word initiative and reward for initiative. They're going to have to learn this very rapidly, and it's going to be a hard lesson. That's why we're going to have, if we're lucky, we'll have one. We won't have a Japanese-style lost generation or lost generations. If we're lucky, we're going to have one generation that's just going to get the hell slapped out of it. And then the generations behind it are going to wise up, which I think they've already done that, and are going to be prepared to knuckle down and get some stuff done here, and we'll come through it all. And it's certainly not up to me, but the data suggests that we're going to get into, let's just say Venezuela kind of conditions, but not national and not continuous and not, so you'll be able to move around. There'll be some levels of freedom where you won't be restricted all the time, but we'll have weird kind of stuff popping up, and it's a question of how weird it gets in your area and whether you're going to vote with your feet or and move if it becomes that strange in that area. So we're going to have food crises. That's going to affect things around. We're going to have economic freeze-ups and all of these kinds of problems at the same time that we have, whole new entrepreneurial areas bringing up and drawing resources to them and jobs and all of this. So it's kind of like Catherine Austin Fitts is saying, there's Industrial Revolution 2.0 and then there's Industrial Revolution 3.0 that's going to emerge through it. And you just have to be in the right spot to see where you're at. And I don't know where a lot of these things are geographically. That's the thing. I can't say where safe places are or any of this kind of crud because we get too many geographic references. I'm not even able to stop the geographic masking that we get on earthquakes and stuff. So, but I do know that it's going to be chaotic, but at the same time, it's going to be a huge boom in all different kinds of stuff developing. And it's only going to take one or two small key devices to pop out, and the whole world will change for us, not overnight, but within a very short period of time. And so the fall of communism was a short period of time, relatively, 10 years, and Russia is as Russia is now, on its way to emerging into where it is now. So all we need is that one or two key devices to come on out relative to energy. And we're going to struggle, but then we'd be good from that point on. And it's the energy issue that's going to get us all. And that's going to affect us with, Our area here is just swamped with no growth at all in the plants. And then all of a sudden, boom, into this huge growth period, and just all the plants trying to get as much as they can in a very short period of time. And so this kind of a thing is going to affect the food crops. It's not going to be like the global warmist in the 1950s had said, where we were going to get so much carbon dioxide. They said you'd go to the store and you'd get one tomato and it'd be the size of a watermelon, and you'd take it on home, but you'd have to eat that whole tomato because it would just be a regular tomato's worth of nutrition expanded out to the size of a watermelon because of all the carbon dioxide in the air. And it just isn't that way. It's just not working out that way. So we're going to have to really work on these food issues going forward. That's some of the reasons that, Kathy and I are trying to get relocated and change the way we live now, because we know that these systems are starting to be affected, and we need to take what steps we can.
Thank you very much. I mean, basically, it's get your buckle up your bootstraps and get ready to work.
Yeah.
And don't just sit on the sidelines.
The future's yours.
Yeah, you can't sit there and ask for the handouts either. You got to get involved. That's what's nice about these cryptos. Anybody can get involved. You do it yourself with a little bit amount of money, a lot amount of money, doesn't matter. And
YouTube, just sit there and watch some YouTube. In fact, shut this crap off and go watch some real YouTube now.
YouTube you.
Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. That's what I'm going to do. I've got some programming stuff I want to learn, so I'm going to do that.
Interesting. All right. Well,
happy birthday to Bix. Happy birthday.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, thank you. 4th of July is my actual day.
And that's
we understand.
That's not a Bitcoin B on his shirt. That's just a B for Bix, right?
The Bix coin is coming out mid-July. A real silver coin.
Yeah.
And I'll create a Realist News token that rides on your blockchain, if you don't mind.
Sounds good.
There we go.
My blockchain anytime you want to.
All right, let me end this video here, and we'll chat for a second.